There we go.
No, I was actually referring to John. Do you actually know any Oompa Loompas?
Not personally, but we could, get some orange hair dye, I think, and just pretend. Or is it green hair dye? I can't remember.
You should interbreed them with your wombat.
I think they have multiple colors, actually. It was our family obligation every Thanksgiving to go and see The Wizard of Oz. So,
wow, that's a tradition and a half.
Times to count.
This is the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Mark.
And the Oompa Loompas are also in Wizard of Oz.
Are they really?
Yeah.
But they're munchkins.
Oh, I see. I got those confused. Damn, I don't go to Dunkin' Donuts anywhere near enough.
It's over to you. We are live. Sorry.
All right.
Don't get it confused with Minions.
Welcome, everybody, to the newest issue of Lit Balm. And today we're absolutely delighted to welcome 4 seasoned Australian poets. They are KA Rees, Beth Spencer, Magdalena Ball, and Willo Drummond. Welcome, all of you. And we'll be delighted and looking forward to hear you. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce Jeff Wright, our co-host, who received his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg. He's best known as a new romantic poet. He's also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He's the author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Lyre and Party Everywhere. His poems have appeared in the Cafe Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, the Hurricane Review, Posit. His recent work also appears in the anthologies Best American Poetry, New York Insiders, and Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry. Jeff's latest work is a book of sonnets and artwork called Doppelgangster, which is out from Mad Hat Press. And Jeff recently won the Sir Vision James Tate Prize. In fact, I think his book has just come out. Isn't that right, Jeff?
Yeah, it just came out. Fuel for Love. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. It's great to see you all. Cassandra's put together this great program for us today. It's a funny thing, though, with the bio thing, it's sort of like all these things I made a few movies, I draw and play art, it's like, but where does it end? I think everybody's probably doing that stuff. Should I put the word chef in there? Anyway. One thing about my poem today, which is called Glide Path, which I had no idea what it meant. It's some kind of financial term, but about older adults. But there's this word cause in here. So it's fun to sneak the word cause in, but it's really, when you hear it, it's like, it's more like the Crows. So it's in quotes, cause, C-A-U-S-E. Glide path. Morning tosses its silver mane. Brute wind kicks up white caps that lap at rows of black posts, marking what's left of Pier 28. Ah, to have been of use and still look good. It is always already. We make hazelnut coffee and break out some almond biscotti. Everything costs too much. Validation comes from crows calling out their choral cause. My songs get lost in joy's folly. To have dwelt east of everywhere and felt the touch of a savior. And I dug that felt and dwelt rhymed in there. All right, now, thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure and joy. Cassandra, how long have you been with the show, with Mark on the show now? 3 years?
No, not that long. Not that long.
A long time. He's such a staple here. So great. Cassandra Atherton is an award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry and introduction and co-edited the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She's commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine and Professor of Writing and Literature in Melbourne, Australia. Take it away, Cassandra.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to read a poem this week. I don't know how many of you know Denise Duhamel, but I was Zooming into her creative writing class, which was really exciting. I love the fact that Zoom lets us do that now, and talking to her class about prose poetry. And one of the things actually that they didn't know were about iced Vovos for the Australians in the room. They were Googling iced Vovos when I got there. So I said, I'm going to post them some iced Vovos so they can taste the glory of the biscuit that has, gorgeous pink marshmallow jam and coconut on it. And it made me think about some of the poems that I've written about prose poetry itself, because they were laughing about the fact that an iced Vovo looks a little bit like a prose poem as a biscuit. So this one's called Fully Justified, and it sort of riffs off the idea of what a prose poem is. You catch my breath as it floats under a room of words. It warms your palm before easing through the spaces between your fingers, rising like a high sea. In this snuggery, we are a fragment of ourselves, a line without an ending, a gap in the kerning. Between your sheets, I am your skin and my heart, an ecstasy of limbs. When I leave your bed, my corpus haunted by your touch, I'm not sure what you will remember and how much time will smooth the edges of our ragged right margin. And now I would like to introduce the incredible Mark Vincennes. And for regulars who know his bio, please tune in and wait for the dramatic ending. Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published over 40 books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently, The Pearl Diver of Irunmani with White Pine Press, A Splash of Cave Paint with Spite and Dival, a chapbook, An Alphabet of Last Rites with Chavina Bava, The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars with Lavender Ink, The Mayfly Codex with Spite and Dival, 3 Telltale Love Signs with Subpress Collective, Thieves Canto with Nick. Oh, I never know this one. Nix's Mate. I'm sure it's something better than that. I'll just blame my Australian accent. Mark can fix me up later. And just recently, The Visitation, a novelette from Sir Vision. Mark is also a prolific translator and has translated from the German, Romanian, and French. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently in Audible Blue, Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz. And it won, as you all know, the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. His own work has been translated into so many languages, including Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. He has lived, everyone, all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are still more witch hazels, black locusts, and pignut hickory than bipedal hominids. Mark, will you read for us and tell me how to pronounce the publisher of Thieves Canto? You're on mute.
Nix's Mate is the pronunciation.
What does it mean?
It's a location near Boston,
Okay.
on the harbor or something like that.
Australians are going to like that one because it's got mate in the title.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Here's one called A Small Continent Unveils Her Flat Surfaces and Slinks Quietly into a corner. I'll repeat that. A small continent unveils her flat surfaces and slinks quietly into a corner. When all the dust has settled in her lustrous stuffing of costumed centuries, dead keratin and bone, cracked ideolatries, fantastical mythologies, faked ideologies of the creator and the shepherd, of the incumbent and the upstart, each shedding skins, yet honing in on a vigorous stakeholding. Waste not, want not, was once said. Use and reuse was also once said. Every little particle can be accrued as an island, even as she shifts across centuries, millennia. The Smiths tell us nothing has been left behind, merely transposed, transformed, reimagined, re-engineered. Does each century find a use for another of these as yet undiscovered elemental building blocks of life, as if they might never run out? As if they might never run out, was once said. And before we start with the feature, I'm just going to hand the mic over to Kate, who's going to explain to us how all of you met and came together.
Yeah, thanks, Cassandra. Thanks, Mark. What a wonderful introduction, and what a fantastic way to start the day. I mean, I know that you guys are having this in the evening time, but starting the day with poetry, that's fantastic. So this group started, it was really, we all connected online during COVID. There's a National Writers Centre here called Varuna. They started up a Zoom group during COVID, but there wasn't really that many poets joining to discuss their work. And the time was a bit ordinary for us as well. So Beth had the bright idea of starting a poetry Zoom. And we all just really joined from week one. We knew each other through work in journals, online, you know, Facebook, Instagram. And I think it was just really an organic process, because we just started with this literary friendship first. And we've just become good friends through Zoom. And it's just sort of like we discuss everything. We discuss competition, fees, editorial experiences. Sometimes we actually discuss each other's work, but it's really much broader than that. The literary landscape in Australia, whose work we've read, and what we found fascinating in a wider cultural context. So everything really. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that, but.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks. Well, I think we'll move on to Willo Drummond, and I'm going to make sure to read your new bio. Willo Drummond is a poet, researcher, successional lecturer, and supervisor in creative writing, who lives and writes in Darung and Gundungurra Land, the New South Wales Blue Mountains, Australia. Her debut collection, Moon Ras, was published by Puncher and Watman in 2023 and commended in Five Islands Poetry Prize for a first book of poetry. In 2024, Moon Ras was selected as one of 45 Australian titles to feature in the Aesop Queer Library. Willo has been a recipient of a career development grant for poetry from the Australia Council, shortlisted for the Val Vallis Award, and runner-up in the Tom Collins Poetry Prize. In 2022 to 23 to 24, she co-edited with poet Stuart Barnes, Queering Eco-Poetics, a queer-themed issue of Plumwood Mountain, an Australian International Journal of Eco-Poetry and Eco-Poetics. Welcome, Willo.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, for reading my slightly revised bio, Mark. And thank you to Cassandra and Jeff for having me here today, and to Kate for bringing us together for this reading this morning. It's a real joy to be at this fabulous global salon of words. It's certainly the earliest I've ever done a poetry reading, so we'll see how that goes, but I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm located about 2 hours outside of Sydney, and I'm going to read you a selection of poems today from my debut collection that Mark mentioned, Moonras, out last year with Puncher and Watman. Moonras is a collection that deals with a range of themes under the umbrella of transformation, the transformative process of grief when there's social space afforded it, and in particular the griefs associated with childlessness and infertility. It also deals with the transformative process of reading, writing, and the relationship between them. And finally, it's also something of a love story in that it explores the process of gender transition from the perspective of a life partner. So I'm going to read you 5 poems today. The first 2 will deal with childlessness, and then a selection of poems that speak into that space around partnerships in transition. You'll hear that most of the poems are quite dialogic, or are written either after the work of another poet or in conversation with various fragments of text. And I'll signal the kind of most significant of these for you as I go along. So the first poem I'm going to read is written after 2 poems by the great Louise Gluck, after material from her poem Love Poem, and also from The Wild Iris. And you'll hear a line from Gluck early in this poem. This is called The Act of Making. There is always something to be made of pain, she said. A claret scarf, a souffle, misshapen gardens fecund with memory and fluffed intention. How can you bear so many imagined blooms, heavy with scent of hope, let go? You tend tender shoots day after day, while remembrance scratches your knuckles, and solitary bees hover, uncertain what to make of such circuitous traversing of stiff, dry earth. Unwomanly, bent queen, brimful of shame, with nowhere to dig in. You strike, scrape flushed clay, seeking signs, portents, why the seasons unfolded as they did, why the iris falls blue as the moon, why cicadas go on singing when song hushed long ago in your throat. No one can say. Parched, you shake barren dust from boots, walk on and on to build another bed, simply for the act of making. Somewhere, a ghost orchid blooms. So the next poem I'm going to read makes use of a line from a poem called Underwater Corking by the wonderful Australian poet Felicity Plunkett, who I'm also lucky enough to have had as a mentor while I was developing this collection. That poem is from her collection, A Kinder Sea. This is another poem that engages with threads of parenthood, ambivalence, infertility, and loss, and it was runner-up in the Tom Collins Poetry Prize. This is called Ways of Seeing. One perigee syzygy, a poem speaks of the 10 lunar months it takes to make a child. In ancient Egypt, these intervals were understood to begin when the waning could no longer be seen before first light. Currently, you are stardust, not even yet a crescent. I worry I've lost too many hours waning, my knowing too slim, a left-aligned filament that cannot catch and hold a feather, let alone a ray of shimmering dust. Perhaps gibbous with confusion, I'm spent. Will I, won't I, this way or that, while others turn with such precision, radiant orbs, content filled. I dream of conjunctions, luminous alignments, stackings of hope in indigo night. A matter of perspective, of course, our nearness, glimmering illusion that you are so easily within reach. Thank you. So, well, thank you for that lovely comment. One of the primary threads that Moonras explores is the intersubjective experience of being one half of a partnership in which someone is undergoing a gender transition. You know, what does it mean for your own identity? What does it mean for your relationship? How are things going to look on the other side of all of that liminality in the really early days of transition? The next 3 poems I'm going to read now engage with these questions. This first poem is from a longer sequence called Axis of a Shifting World, and it makes use of material from UK-born US poet Denise Levertov's poems Spring in the Lowlands and The Ache of Marriage. So this is Axis of a Shifting World 2. Lean into me. Let me stand where you can no longer. Solitude surrounds us, of course, even 2 by 2 as we are in the ache of it. From this vantage, we glimpse a kite, let it drag us away, kick off the dust. Lean into me. Around us is sky and the remnants of ritual. And you, and now you. The axis is shifting. Although it is possible I had you in mind all along, you are rewriting me. My maps are recharting. Will you know me when you become, and I am rewritten? Thank you. So this will be my second last poem. This one is called Moonras. It's the title poem of my collection. For those who don't know, a moonras is a species of fish that undergoes a female to male gender transition in midlife. So this is Moonras. Here you are, my blue moon, Ras, newborn, barely imagined being. I see you with a new lucency, clear as the blue of your new man's suit, sweet as the sky, true as day. Back and forth you carve this place of ours, continuing a persistent insistence on incessant activity you always loved to dance. Some things change, some stay the same. Here you are, forming, transforming, twinkling your web toes, shaking your tail crescent. Lyras, we cycle through the dappled light of the casuarina, holding hands like younger lovers in a film, in a dream. All is calm and comfort here, moving in our translucent cocoon, self-made and safe as houses, or as a fresh-made pair of parrotfish pajamas. Thank you so much for listening today. The final poem I'm going to read for you now is for anyone who might have come into knowledge about their identity or has held that knowledge for a long time, but who's yet to cross the threshold into living in the fullness of their true self. This is called Some Words for Migratory Birds. Remember last year on the flyway, just before the 4th stopover, you taught me to read star maps under blush of sea-sprayed moonlight. Direction was magnetic then. I, you, she, he. We moved shore to shore without the burden of knowing. Flying in tight formation, hearts driven with intention. Now, we witness the birth of a white-bellied sea eagle on a 2-inch screen. My hand, my limb, reaches for the familiar feel of your wingtip, while you, preoccupied, testing the waters of transformation, almost miss the cue. Thing is, the slightest shift in alkalinity sets the whole thing in motion. We must conserve our energy, for there's just so far to go. Here, listen to my voice. The world is waiting for you and your flight notes. What will you make of them? Turn, face northward, embark. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for listening.
Thank you, Willo. Wonderful, wonderful work. Next we have from KA Rees, or Kate. who's a writer of short fiction. Her work has appeared in national and international publications, including Australian Poetry Journal, Cordite Poetry Review, Island Online, New Australian Fiction, Overland, Sky Island Journal, and the Yabusha Review, among others. Kate was the recipient of the National Prize for the 2019 new NWF Joanne Burns Microfiction Award. She's been shortlisted for the Judith Wright Poetry Prize and is a past recipient of the Barry Hannah Prize in Fiction. Kate's pocket poetry book, Come the Bones, was published with Flying Island Books in 2021. She lives on Guy Mariagal Land in Sydney. Guy Mariagal Land in Sydney. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks so much for that, Mark, and fantastic pronunciation. Some of those names can be very difficult. Thanks, Willow. That was just such a wonderful reading. I love listening to Willow read her work. She just has such an amazing expression. I'm going to kick off my reading with a poem from my collection, Come the Bones. This is called Bravo, and just a tiny bit of background information on it. It was written when my kids were very young, and we managed a holiday for the first time. We booked it to Fiji, first overseas holiday. And my young son got a horrendous bug on the plane and started vomiting. And the vomiting did not stop pretty much for the whole time we were there. And Andrew, my partner, and I were exhausted syringing this kid with electrolytes every couple of minutes to keep him hydrated. No one was having any fun whatsoever, except for my daughter, who was in the kids club there, and she was having a marvelous time. Somehow I got to thinking about the Pacific Proving Grounds. I suppose a vomiting child will do that to you. And Castle Bravo. And it's this poem has come out of this very strange, disjunction of feeling. It's called Bravo. 1. There's dust and black plastic instead of beach, the curled tongues of lizards, washed up bubbles of air, the ticking shoreline, some beads scattered like rosaries. There are diminutive shadows shaped as organs lying next to stars. Here a heart, there a lung slung next to an empty can of beer, a peach who had cause to forget. It lies among the grit of sand, a broken ear. Sand is a unit of time, roiling under the broiling waves. A girl skipping stoops to where she found it, smaller, more translucent than she was expecting. The politician fingering his pocket looked so carefree. There was so much of the world here on the edge. 2. A dugout pit, 2 dusty dogs woofing wooden air, noses holding scent, puddling across the curling dirt, snuffing the mouth of the pit. Noise, words, more, a stick. They split past advancing feet, moving the blood trail close. The flesh goes in, and later, as the heat rises, come the bones. 3. The island is fire, arcing volcanic rock. How is it loose, this coruscant? One careless strike, or more, the lo-fi heat, the lo-fi buzz of heat like blood. It winds its way on the back of noon. A snake flechettes open ground to trees. Tongues of ash are floating on ribbons of light, flicking the tide. They fall curled, displacing topography, meridian, lines of latitude. Palm fronds S, the raised air hits cracked opal. Saltwater forks, searching boundaries of sky. We left deformities and mutations. For a time, there were no eyes to see. Thank you. This second one is called Thin Veil, and it's got a just SES in this is short for State Emergency Service, and it's an emergency service that's made up of mostly entirely unpaid volunteers. Thin veil. Where's the bloody Panadol? Clutch at your porcelain mug, fingers white-tipped numb. The electric clock clatters round, a hummingbird caught on naked winter's bough. Turn the dial, pocket radio trawl the holiday road toll. 3 dead, a shoal of gravel came to rest at the base of a ghost gum, the child's toy upchucked into bushes. You tread through bruised air, brush shivers of glass, licking shadow. The river overflows, smell of flood and silt trapped, fingers that will not let go. SES volunteers move through rising fog, penumbral morning spans and stretches, reflective clothing thrumming. Wolf spiders balloon threads, webs jacket rain sticks, never falling to the ground. You make the effort, a glass of water, the pills, and down. Pick at melange, pieces of ribbon scrounged from old wrapping paper, photos of friends long gone, standing round drinking, watching some game, forget you are condemned. If only water could get deeper in to warm the bones of the mind, deeper water rushing. You should try crawling, a child, the black diamond swirl of your life. You bleed those shapes, they come around. Go home, look behind the blinds, the curtains, paintings, to the walls, to the cracks in the walls, to the spider behind the TV set, and never forget the dead. You carry them on your shoulders, wrapped around your waist and under your armpits. They don't say. Sometimes you don't notice them for weeks, then your arm will go numb. Someone has turned over a stone, exposed cold earth to sun. Thank you. This third poem I'm going to read from a collection called Not Very Quiet. Hopefully you can see that. Cassandra's in this one too, I believe. Yes. So this is a sestina, and it's it uses the suicide note of Virginia Woolf and some phrases from that. So it's actually an echo sestina. Pocket rocks. Dearest, I feel certain I'm going mad again, and I shan't recover this time. I begin to hear voices, tongue songs, and I can't concentrate. So I'm doing what seems the best thing to do. You have given me the greatest possible happiness. Everything has gone from me, but the certainty of your goodness. I cannot go on and spoil your life, your wife. She smears a jot from the corner of the page on her life, describe, stows the pen, caps the ink, looking again to green nails breaking the crust of soil. She pulls at sleeve, certainty hooks her brimmed hat, her walking stick. At the door she hears voices. Voice is muddled in an ear, tugs on Wellingtons down a possible path. Down the path, a possible thing, touches hardness loosed from dirt, round and smooth against the seam. More quickly now, her boots on steps. The flowers only seemed in bloom yesterday, but yesterday was this life, knife away. A dragonfly cuts glass, oscillating paper wings, its possible song. She reaches for the fluted crag of water, drawing her on again, and the voices, and the voices, and the voices. She notes the spondy, tapping out her stick with certainty. Again this earth. She shakes loose hardness in grasses and inevitability, places these pocket rocks against her seeming flesh. She's weight in utterance, muddle, mutter, pulling at bubbles ere the vowel of her life, esprit, sprite, spite. Will she float this time or sink under Wellingtons and water and the weight of again? She has no time, but she has the impossible, the thing itself, fracture as in wood. The air whistles, burnt currents, war renewed. This is the swelling lap of decay. Now the sun, but now it is the bassoon of her father, the silted notes of her sister. The brother seems to reach for the surface as she feels the skin of this death. Cessation, terminus, annunciation. River rocks add to hard earth. She is here as presented, but there is no one to witness her parting from this life. Once you choose this, anything is possible, it seems. The water is cold. It is deep again. Thank you. I'm just going to go back to my collection. And this one is the final one in the collection. It's called We Make Lemons, and it's after Allen Ginsberg's supermarket in California. We make lemons. You keep your dark light in jars of Vegemite. I keep my chest air in cans of lemonade and only breathe it in supermarkets. Aisles of tinned goods, sugared cereal boxes wrapped in all the world just like happiness, weekly specials, flash sales, a woman smiles teeth, smash, grab. You keep your dark light sealed in magazines. Randomness, but a lottery. We're not looking to win any. Take it. Some more? You want some? Homogenized, pasteurized. Take it. Well, we've got some. We tried to check it with tinned tomatoes to take it back to make the cake, but the stuff is out of date. Late, too late. You keep your dark light in cans of mace. Tracer arc explodes fence lines. Placards jut the sky, hold the torch, keep the count. Buy, buy, buy. We try to shelter from the rain. Plastic bags hang limp from limbs. Like magpies, our feathers drip, but our throats are closed to song. We talk stale with muted breath. Did you see the baby in the sausages? The poet shot by the watermelons? Did you choke on the... You keep your dark light in shaded cloth. You outline the moon in pen and ink under the next neon sign. You hide a spill of rainwater, pouring baptism, wet incandescence, mother of the load. You keep your dark light locked in passing cars, sat on the rug and back, where fox's jaws crunches bones, there's more to taste when there's teeth. Neon glows too bright on all the words. You, darkening acetone. The cloth is wet, face unknown. Thank you. And I think that that's probably it for me. I think my 12 minutes is up.
Well, thank you, Kate.
Thanks,
Really
everyone.
Now I'm delighted to introduce Magdalena Ball, who's a novelist, poet, reviewer, interviewer, vice president of Flying Island Books, and managing editor of Compulsive Reader. Her stories, editorials, poetry, reviews, and interviews have appeared in a wide number of journals and anthologies, and have won local and international awards. Magdalena is the author of several novels and poetry books, most recently Bobbish, a verse memoir published by Puncher and Whatman in 2023. You can find more out about her at magdalenaball.com. Welcome, Magdalena.
Thank you so much. And Kate and Willo, just stunning readings as always. You know, writing can be a very solitary process, but being part of a group like we are, it really gives you, it kind of broadens out your sense of your writing practice such that the rejections don't hurt as much and the wins are shared in such a way that it really resonates. I'm coming to you from the beautiful unceded lands of the Awabakal people, and we often begin by acknowledging those things. And I thought, as I was writing Babish, which is actually a verse memoir of my great-grandmother, who migrated at the age of 14 from the Pale of Settlement in Eastern Europe, alone at the age of 14 to New York City. And I will read you some poems that chart that progress and that journey a little bit. But we often think, I was thinking as I was working on this book very much about her trauma, of course, but also the layers of trauma that were effectively there in the spaces that she was arriving in. She didn't know when she arrived in New York City that there had already been massacres and traumas, that the land itself was rich with pain and beauty and pain. So I also wanted to lean into those things as I was working on my land back in time, in space, between where I was and where she was at that time. So the first poem I'm going to read to you is Rebecca. Her name is Rebecca Lieberman, and this is her arrival. Again, she's 14 years old, and she's arriving in New York City on Ellis Island, and it's called Empire Erased. It was over in an hour, 1,000 people in an hour. Who dared count the weary passengers disembarking from the cramped steerage, Zwischendeck, lips cracked with sea salt, bribes, promises, as many illicit exchanges as there were people, as there were dreams, not so much of something better, but of safety. Someone has to survive to pass on the story. They kept on moving, checkpoint to checkpoint, fingers probing hair, no lice, clothing, old, stiff, cough, lean forward, raise arms, keep going. An empire was erased just like that. She would never go back. There were people left behind, of course, in the ghetto of her youth, the shtetl, writing names in the air with a finger, waiting for her to send a handful of prepaid tickets if the streets really were paved with gold. Words were cobblestones beneath her feet. 31 questions in a language she didn't speak. Name, age, sex, nationality, health, how much money was in her pocket. Was she dangerous? At 5 foot tall with arms like matchsticks, hooded eyes concealing more pain than a malnourished body should be able to hold. How do you answer? She tried and failed to forget her mother's wet eyes, her father's hastily gathered bag of coins, cousins, uncles. Of course they existed somewhere, but who knows what happened to them, their sacrifices, their losses. They're gone. Were they ever there? Keep up the pace. She tried to speak, but words didn't fit her mouth. There were no papers, only a brown tag pinned to the shoulder, containing a number like a price you might put on cattle. She wasn't for sale. Her number wasn't up this time. So the next poem I'm going to read to you leans a little bit into the whole notion of what poetry is and what it does. It's called Every Poem is a Lie. There is no dissembling here, no truth to be verified in a court of what did and didn't take place. There is only desire. This is where it begins. It may be that all there is to know has already been answered, and there is only conjecture from here on in. So why not go straight to where it hurts? Where it hurts is the point of entry, a wormhole. There is no such thing as time. We talk of passing, cause and effect, tag something as a beginning arbitrarily. We cannot live unbounded. And so, 1. Arrival, disembarking a crowded ship, dirty, hungry, not just for food, into a new life, 2 people unknown to one another, linked by proximity, nostalgia or anguish, dark heads with different dreams. 2. They both entered the job market within a week. The census said fish smoker. For her, nothing. No, she was a seamstress, working without formalities. A tiny job in a big space. It always comes down to profits. He was an educated man, brother, dancer, linguist, gaucho, a woman's man masquerading as a man's man. Weighed down by herrings, lox, whitefish, you'd be surprised at what needs to be smoked. It was hard work, honest. That's what they called it. It paid the rent, just. Hers was a world where shirts mattered. Labor was needed. Her hands small enough. No one wrote it down. Nowadays, they say undocumented. Words break down under scrutiny. 3. The beginning of something else. Let's call them hobbies, or perhaps that's too glib. Ancillary activities. For him, a nightly tipple, bootleg whiskey, a flutter, extra cash. For her, the reading of tea leaves. These are voices that might endure under the right kind of pressure, like diamonds. What if she pays some of the bills from her readings? A small group of regulars lining up to learn the future. It might be a lie, or magic, or something entirely different. Born of everything she left, soft crooning, sleep little bird, schlaf meine Vögele. The story will not end here. Though time is illusory, we have to begin. She opens the window of her tiny apartment, and light fills the kitchen. So the next poem I'm going to read to you is the first poem I actually wrote for the book. You know, we all have these mythologies we grow up with, stories that the families carry. And this is the story I knew. This is one of the things that really drew me into Rebecca's life. And what I knew was that she worked at the infamous Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, of which, you know, many things have been written. Rebecca was a seamstress there at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, like so many immigrants. We knew that. And as many of you may know, the factory burnt to the ground. It was the worst industrial accident in US history. Many people lost their lives, and it gave rise, the upside is that it gave rise to many industrial reforms. So this is the poem about Rebecca's time at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory and what happened there. And it's called A Careless Cigarette. March 25th, 1911. She cannot find the energy to lift the curtain. The lamplight flickers. It's not yet morning, and if she doesn't get up, she will lose her job. The room is unheated, a clawfoot bathtub in the kitchen. She bathes quickly, using water from the stove. Above her, faded wallpaper peels from the corner. Steam condenses. He has already left. Morning is a silent affair. There are no children yet, but they are coming. Though it all hangs in the balance in this moment where she has yet to decide. She tries to eat, but she is dizzy. Work to home, home to kitchen, kitchen to bed, a simple equation that doesn't add up on that day. They need the money, but her head wavers like fever. Shtetl dreams, a rooster forever crowing, the neighbor's dog, the smell of black tea, which she has overbrewed this morning of all mornings, black leaves congealing into a warning. She drops the cup, tea spilling onto the floor, crawls back into bed, her small body heavier than it will ever be again, weighed down with prescience. She shivers and sleeps through the day. Her mind plays tricks. In her dream, she sews shirts. Long rows of machines fill the top floor of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory where they lock the exits so the girls won't take a break or leave without first emptying their pockets and handbags for the groping foremen. She is not the only one who speaks little English, her back hunched over flammable white cotton. The teacup remains broken on the floor, where the fish smoker will find it returning home with the news that the factory has burnt down. 146 fellow workers, burnt and asphyxiated, pushing against doors that would not open, broken on the concrete below, where they jumped, living torches inside the cordon. She wakes to find out that she has lost her job, but not her life. He will bend that day with gratitude later forgotten, clean up the spilled tea and broken china. However he arranges the pieces, he cannot repair the cup or the cracks that have opened beneath her skin. Okay, the final poem that I'm going to read to you today, a little more upbeat, is called Repairing the World. This is towards the end of Rebecca's life, so I've tried to go in sequence, and the book is very much in sequence, but I've jumped to the end of her life, towards the end of her life. Once again, I've tried to engage, as I have through the book. I've brought myself in, that's why I've called it memoir, and I've tried to engage a little bit with this notion, this kind of magic notion of the DNA that links her to me, and where I am now versus where she was then, and how that connection itself is not only magic, but because of my relative safety and where I sit now, I guess a kind of healing that works backwards and forwards in time. So, repairing the world. She was tired, her body slowly failing against a world that still needed her. Reaching a thin arm outward towards a future she was able to read but didn't understand. Long words in tiny print from the days when her vision was stronger. So much remained undone. How could she help repair these wounds so deep in the body, in the twisted helix of her genome, and deeper within the world? Where would she begin when her fingers were already curling in? Her husband's Kabbalah sat on the shelf, its edges yellow with dust and time. He had long given up on those studies or any kind of mitzvah. He lived only for oblivion, but would live another lost decade. She would not find answers there. Her hands shook with this last effort. She gathered her final moments, an inward breath pulled from fragile lungs that once sang Yiddish songs, filling the kitchen with the old country, laughing even when there was nothing to laugh about, whispered magic into lukewarm tea, into the warm autumn air, into her daughter's soft dark hair, and through that conduit, her daughter's daughter's daughter passed on a secret sound that wouldn't be heard by anyone in the vicinity, above the elevator train roaring against a setting sun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Magdalena. And we are now delighted to hear from Beth Spencer, who writes a mix of poetry, fiction, memoir, and essay. Her books include The Age of Fibs, Vagabondage, and How to Conceive of a Girl. Beth's work has been broadcast widely on ABC Radio National. She lives in Guringai, Darkin Jungland on the Central Coast, New South Wales. You can find her at bethspencer.com. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I love these three people, and I love listening to them read and never get tired of it. And I think one of the great joys of writing is the literary friendships that you develop around it. So it was a very inspired moment when we got together, I think. So I'm still waking up. That's why they put me last, because I'm a late night person. And I wanted to just start with a piece from this book, which was actually in a book that Cassandra edited for Spineless Wonders, does a book of microlit every year. And so this is called Blade. It was when she tripped over the carpet while walking backwards, carrying the chainsaw, that things really started to look grim. Uh-oh, chainsaw? Did I say chainsaw? I meant chain letter, letter of demand, eviction notice. Notice how the light glints on the teeth of the blade. The carpet was a round black hole, and her foot slipped in. If she wasn't wearing her diamante buckle slippers, she might have been able to save herself, grabbing the edge as she fell. But the slipper started to slip, and she'd loved those diamonds, which reminded her of her mother, who was a bit too rough to love hugely, but, well, you know, enough. You know? Maybe you do. And as she reached one hand down to grasp the slippers, she lost her grip. She lost her grip that day and fell deep, deep into that black, soft rabbit burrow of depression. No one knew, and it was months before they came to evict her and found her, or found her bones, the letter, the diamante buckled slipper, the abstracted thought, the day that began quite well and went terribly, terribly wrong, the chainsaw still whirling. Just going to check my sound is okay. So the other poems I want to read are from a book I've just finished writing, and it's a sort of a memoir or an autofiction about my childhood called Such is Life in a Small Town. And this poem mentions the TV show Homicide, but the reference is to the Australian 1960s series. And Homicide was one of the first times that we actually, Australians actually saw ourselves on the screens. And it was almost a religious thing every Tuesday night to watch it. And this was back in the days when the detectives wore suits and hats and drove Holden cars. This is called The Murder of Little Joy. When she flew around the room with her family watching Homicide on the couch, when she slid down the hallway in shiny sock feet, so grim, so sad, all those people on the TV, on the couch, Joy didn't know then that this was anger. Didn't know what anger was, not allowed. But see those set mouths? See the way no body touches any other body? Her mother locked inside her knitting needle moat. Bodies, yuck. Except Joy loves bodies. Massaging brothers' bare backs as they lie on the carpet after work in summer, loves having her hair rubbed into knots between father's feet while he watches footy. Loves sister drawing guess the letter with a soft fingertip on her spine at night in bed. But in the living room, as Joy flies around up on the ceiling, aren't you supposed to be in bed? She can see the anger like a mist, and that against the law thing on the TV, taking life, an eye for an eye. Let's examine the evidence, shall we? What does that cigarette butt mean? No cigarettes, no vices, no drinks at elbows, just a tiny bit of sugar for a whole big family in each hard-to-swallow dish. Why is it called sweets if there is so little sweetness? Just desserts, eat it. Then Dad brings home a whole block of Cadbury's chocolate, sabotage, and all of our hunger fixates to that crafted sweet milk on the arm of the chair, glass and a half, and all our bodies line up to receive a piece each while Dad finishes the rest, silently, eyes on the TV, and Mum keeps her knitting needle fence tight, and Mac tips his hat to Detective Sergeant Barnes. Case closed. So this one's called Dress Me Up, and I grew up on a dairy farm, so there's a few references to that in here. In the nether region of the wardrobe, my mother's silver wedding shoes are a beacon in that long hallway where the bedrooms hide like bodies. In the pink of a bathroom Sunday, she gives us quick sponge before church, underarms and privates, skin wholly in the glow from dimpled glass. The secret parts of her, the softest flesh, the smell of soap and shame and sweat. She fastens the clip of the blue diamante necklace, the promise of peace in war, iced now into tears of feeding and dishes, the long capture of children's bodies, and the weddings, white veil, chink in the armour. Outside, tall sons stride long legs in gumboots. Inside, I parade hobbled high in silver dreams. Past uncle art on the walls, driftwood sculptures, across green carpet like paddocks where the cows low in grief, their milk a shaft of light in a cup under the chaff moats, and the sad soft chewing of it all, and the click of silver. So television was my first narrative language. We had very few books when I grew up, so I learnt about stories and reading through watching TV, basically, and an awful lot of it was American TV. So hopefully you'll recognize some of the references in this. This one's called Eccentric. I used to be the weird blonde one in the Munster family. Grandpa down the cellar always scared me. But now I'm Granny with her rocking chair roped up high on the back of the pickup. Samantha and Tabitha dropping by for a spell. Take a load off your feet. So we mosey on out by the cement pond where Wednesday and Lurch dance a little dance. Inside, Uncle Fester tests light bulbs in his ears, safety first, while cousin Morticia is in the conservatory clipping rose stems, with Gomez kissing featherlight down her black-clad arms. And Thing, darling Thing, does his thing, pointing, beckoning. And this one also has a few TV references. And I don't know if you call them hay bales in Australia, in America, but the hay bales were like rectangle bales of hay that would be all stacked up, and they became our stage. This is called Love Lessons or Operatic Hay Seeds. We learnt about opera from Bugs Bunny. Oh, mature, hit the lights. My sister would take the lead in concerts using the tiered-up hay bales as a stage, dramatic arm gestures, wild singing of love. We took all the parts. Like Bugs, we too could be gender fluid. Put on a scarf, spin around. In this way, Bugs would tease Yosemite Sam and kiss him smack on the lips. Is a kiss the same as a smack? Seems so. We didn't know they were singing words. I thought opera was just warbling and sounds, making it up as you went. Didn't know languages other than ours existed. Pepe Le Pew spoke English after all. And that day, the female cat finally took a love potion and started to want Pepe rather than fight and struggle and run away. Pepe was so freaked out. That was funny. Oh, mature. And the honeymooners. You know, that was real. Real people pretending to be mice. I saw them in a different reality. One of these days, Alice. That's right. One of these days, pow, right in the kisser. And just the last one I want to read is called My Dream Mother. In a house that no longer exists, my mother and I sleep peacefully back to back in the old double bed. In the wardrobe, my parents' clothes are careful not to touch. There is a faint smell of brill cream on my father's pillow. Then the house spreads its wings and flies over the paddocks. Things rattle out. Safety pins, my mother's washcloth, Venetian blinds, the vase I made for her with shells. My dream mother wakes and yawns. On a small, ornate stool, I sit at the dressing table with my special occasion glass of orange lemonade. The house is dark, and like a good scientist, I fill my mouth and prod my cheeks. A fury of orange whooshes over the beveled mirror, runs down onto the embroidered doilies, spreads stickily onto the fake fur mat. I look across at my mother, aghast. I'm sorry too. I rehearse I'm sorry too. I rehearse the words in my head. But she laughs and laughs, and I laugh too. And the lemonade drips in a glorious baptism, and we let the dinner burn and burn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Beth. And thank you, Willow, Katie, Kate, KA Rees, Magdalena as well, for this wonderful reading. I'm going to hand the mic over to Cassandra to see what we have in our open mic offerings today.
We have a wonderful little open mic. It's nice to feel at home with all the Australian accents here. Normally it's just me mangling words, but now they're music to my ears amongst all of you Americans. First up, we always have John Westek. We can't start open without John. And John, I know I've asked you before, but I'm going to ask you again. What is your favorite gelati flavor, given that you do run the fiction gelati?
Saffron.
Oh, really? I don't think you said that last time I asked you. That's pretty cool. I've never had a saffron gelati, so there's a thing for my bucket list. What have you got for us to kick us off?
I will read to you from the Guacamole ad. Sing, goddess, the wrath of Peleus' son wane at avocados brown with corruption that gave their flesh not to tacos but to vultures and wild dogs, and how the will of Zuck was accomplished by the bitter rancor between Atreus' son and swift-footed Wayne, pacifier of picky diners. 9 long hours the waitstaff toiled at Persephone's quinceanera, clad in black thick-soled shoes and knee-length aprons the color of the screensaver sacred to Zuck, Duck, son of Titius, Michael, stacker of chairs, wily Oliver, son of Leartes, and blameless Pat Rockless, could not equal swift-footed Wayne in carrying plates of enchiladas, in green pumpkin seed mole, cochinita pibil, marinated in annatto and orange juice ceviche, empanadas, golden fried tortas, and milanesas. After the guest left well sated, after the plates were ferried away, after the tablecloths folded and sweat-stained bow ties loosened, swift-footed Wayne, pacifier of picky diners, strode forward to claim the spoils from the tip jar that were justly his. Not so fast, son of Peleus. Al Fresco, son of Atreus, and purveyor of the 3 martini lunch, intercepted him. These riches go for overhead. Swift-footed Wayne looked darkly on him. Oh, shameless grifter, how shall any of the waitstaff follow you, who never ferried beer to drunken frat boys, wiped a table, nor returned an overcooked steak? I did not come here for the honor of carrying your trays, but for the prizes won by my sweat and endurance. Arrogant son of Peleus, the purveyor of the 3 martini lunch, replied, what do you know of health inspectors, filing forms omega-2 and filling out schedule gammas at the end of the fiscal year? If you feel so wrong, take these avocados, when mashed with sea salt from the wine dark Aegean, lime from the sunny slopes of Mount Tlaloc, and onions from rich red soil of Vidalia, you will feast like Zuck, son of Kronos, and gatherer of yelps. Swift-footed Wayne halved an avocado with his bronze blade, expecting flesh green as the olive fields of Lemnos. Instead, he found it black as the deepest pit of Tartarus. These are worthless. The pacifier of picky diners tossed them to the carpet. Can it be that heroic Wayne, who boasts of back-to-back shifts on the feast of St. Valentine, trembles at a little oxidation? The son of Atreus said, "They're perfectly fine." Vile alfresco, who never felt the weight of an apron nor the yoke of a bow tie, you so dishonor me with these vile vegetables, I shall withdraw to my studio apartment near Normandy and not return until you apologize at my knees. Go then, there are plenty others who aspire to the grandeur of my 2-for-1 specials, and they're fruits, not vegetables. To be continued.
Thank you. You're making me hungry. I'm either having smashed avo for breakfast or 3 martinis. I'm not going to tell you which one I prefer, but wonderful. Thank you so much. Next, we have DeWitt. We haven't seen DeWitt from the chair, and he's DeWitt from the chair in the hoodie today, rather than in the hood, I guess. DeWitt, what do you got?
This is called Teacher's Dream. In my first Shakespeare's Tragedies class, the kids are chatting and zoned out. So after introductions, I ask them if a girl losing a kitten is tragic. A few get weepy. Oh God, yes. Others guffaw, so I ask, why not? Because nobody gives a shit about kittens. Instead, I suggest a story about a person in her late 20s whose father is self-absorbed and distant and whose mother has died and who wants to better the world, becomes a social worker, has edgy relationships with men. All her love is in her work. Then starts to crave a child, seeks infertility docs, goes through the treatments. At last, after anguish and thousands of dollars, becomes pregnant, says, I did it, me, I did it. The pregnancy complicates her career, but she is totally happy, has the baby. Then 7 months later, baby dies. She stares at emptiness, but somehow inside finds heart to go forward dry-eyed. Is that a tragedy? I ask. Silence. Everyone drops the course. Joke.
I love the end of that. You had comedy and tragedy in the same poem, but I love that. I love the way you fleshed that out. I hope it's based on a real experience from your days in the classroom, because I think you would have been awesome in your Shakespearean teacher role. Thank you, DeWitt. We've missed you. May. We've had May before, and she's amazing. So, May, what have you got for us this week?
Okay. It's a good thing to unmute first. Yes. I've been reading poems from my home, Hawaii. I grew up on a sugar plantation there. My grandparents, all 4 of them emigrated from Japan to Hawaii about 100 years ago, well, over 100 years ago. Right. This is a poem about my dad. Breaking the Sky in Two. My first boyfriend was one Portuguese with a blonde mustache and a '68 Mustang. My mother fumed. Stop talking about him. Talk about something else. If you can't, then go away. My father said nothing. He stared across time, his mind cast like one of his fishing lines out and away from his body. He had been whipped in a sugarcane field. In 1930, and just graduated from the 8th grade, My father was a handsome boy, cocky in his almost adult skin, sent to the fields to work with the other Japs. The man on horseback had a blonde handlebar mustache, a brimmed hat, and a whip, a horse crop. He was everything a Jap boy could want to be, but never become, a god to be smiled at and appeased. My father was too slow that day, clumsy in the presence of such wonder, or perhaps he'd been clowning around when the man came up from behind, leaned from above, swung the riding crop over his head, and then brought it down, whistling, breaking the sky in two across young shoulders. Once, or maybe more, enough to create a man, enough to teach a father how to stare, swallow that sting, and refuse to see his daughter leave in a car driven by one of their sons.
Wow, what a poem, what an ending. And the sad part, my father was too slow that day, and the way that it kind of evolves into the final lines. Thank you so much. It was so moving. Thank you for sharing. Well, my badass Brooklyn sis is up next. She's in her lounge room. She's apparently in a nightgown with a top over the top, but she always looks good. She's always ready to roll. Cindy.
Today I'm going to be very silly. I'm channeling Ogden Nash. After all these wonderful, serious, heartbreaking poems, I'm going to lighten the mood and be very silly. Called Poem for Spring, or Ode to My Fellow Hay Fever Sufferers. I'm allergic to pollen and ragweed and grass. Brain fog and fatigue are kicking my ass. I'm allergic to chocolate, boo-hoo, and sometimes I swear I'm allergic to you. Oh, spring, while everyone else is admiring your greens, I'm downing this bottle of antihistamines. So although I love the warmth of the season and not having to wear gloves and a hat, my eyes are as beady as a rat. My sinuses clog at the sight of a cat. In short, this poem's nothing to sneeze at.
I saw that coming. I saw the ending. That's so good. It's so good. I love the beady-eyed rat too. That's one of my faves. I love a bit of messing around, Cindy. You're the queen of the amusing poem. And we finish open mic every time with Bob beaming in from his kitchen. We're not sure what he's going to give us. He's very enigmatic, but I always say to the people here that I like to take Bob's words away with me for my day and think about them, because I always do. I can't help but think about his strange and amazing and uncanny words. Bob.
Thank you so much. Okay, this is an information piece I haven't read for over 10 years. So should be new to everyone except perhaps Cindy and Karen, or perhaps not. Information. Spoke about hands to the handicap and legs to the legendary. Duplicated the door that the woman adored. Built a pig out of twigs and a glass out of grass. Found some surface that hadn't yet surfaced. Found a man who managed himself in some sand that was sandwiched between. Abandoned the band and welcomed the bell. Made the maiden complete. Canceled the order for cans.
That's why we love him finishing open. We adore you. Bob. I don't have a door that I can use to use your play on words, but that's the best way to end it open. Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that Bob and I are now discussing selected of his best information pieces.
Oh, that would be so good. They're so unique. No one does information like Bob. So that would be very cool if that happens.
All right. Well, once again, thank you all for this wonderful reading. Thank you, Beth, Magdalena, Willow, and Kate. What a wonderful reading. And I'm just going to close with a little poem of mine called Behind the Curtains, Someone Said, because I kind of feel that we still have to go with a slightly humorous tone of Cindy, but bring it back to another level as well. And just before I do that, I should also mention that next week we have another show, next Saturday, the Arrowsmith Books reading, which includes Christopher Merrill, Diane Meta, and Stephen Kramer. So do join us for that as well. But here we go. Behind the curtains, someone said. Behind the curtains, someone said, beauty is the birth of nothing. And with that, which she barely endured, was the compass carrying her own direction. Imagine this, dear citizens. The information required to make a full movie is withheld by virtue of discretion, something apportioned in wide-eyed increments, information which, by virtue, is nothing more than beauty. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful night, and have a great weekend. Lots of poetry and love. See you
And
guys.
Vegemite. Don't forget the Vegemite, Mark.
Oh, Vegemite.
Yes,
Vegemite.
Vegemite.
Bye, everyone.